Welcome. Today we are starting a new kit, and I just think new kits are so exciting. I love them. And this one is called Fireplace Santa. And this kit, if you look right down here in the corner, you can see a copyright date of 2021. So this is a few years old, a couple years old, but somehow I feel like it has quite a nostalgic look to it. Seems like it might be even older than it is. And we will go through this kit together step by step. And so let's get started. Here we go. I will just kind of acquaint you with what's going on. This is the key that is going to tell you what all of the symbols mean over here on this sheet. And on the opposite side of this sheet, you're going to get your step-by-step directions. I will say that it looks as though this kit has 100 pieces. I like to know that. It helps me to know the difficulty of the kit. So I would say this one is potentially a good beginner kit. I think around 100 pieces or less is a good place to start. So, as you can see, here I have started by cutting out piece number 1, which is in almost all cases the front of your stocking. You can see it's got all these indication lines of where we're going to put things. But I have recently been told by a viewer, thank you so much, that the fold lines in the felt gets folded and pressed tightly into a kit, that those can be really distracting. And I understand that, and that the finished product is sometimes nicer if you can press it out. So that's what I'm going to do right now. I am going to press it. And the first thing I'm going to do is I have set my iron to the silk setting, which is one of the lowest settings. I'm going to turn over my piece of felt so that these marking paint lines are down, and I'm going to put a cloth over the top and I'm going to press it. And it does sometimes take a few tries to get all of the creases out of your piece. But don't worry, just keep trying. Just don't raise the temperature because you can melt felt. So you don't want to do that, and you also don't want to lose your indication lines. So I will be okay there. I hope you can see that is pressed and flat. It did take multiple passes, and I try not to stay in any one area for too long for fear of, again, I'm very cautious about not wanting to lose the paint indication lines. So let's go forward and start with step 1. Personalize, embroider, and sequin the stocking front 1. Well, this stocking won't be personalized yet. The people that have ordered this stocking, I believe it's for a child that's not born yet. So what a wonderful gift, a lifetime gift. But anyway, we will need to do the indication lines. So here, let me bring it closer so you can see better. Here it's giving us the indication that the sequins we're going to place on this piece number 1, are going to be red, and that we're going to use these little V's are telling us what kind of stitch and what color to use there. So if we go here and we find the V marker right here, it tells me I'm going to use 2 strands of burgundy yarn, or not yarn, floss, sorry, and I'm going to use an outline stitch to embroider that. So let's get that out and get started on that. And again, embroider first, then put the sequins on, because the sequins will catch your embroidery thread, and it's just a slightly less of a headache if you can do that first. So we're going to find the burgundy yarn here. I keep saying yarn. I'm sorry. It is floss. And this appears to be the burgundy to me. And we are going to start to outline stitch. And these are going to be some of the most simple outline stitches that you can do because they're straight. And some of the outline stitches later on, they may be curved or something, and then you need to look at the direction your curve is going and how your stitches will best lay flat. So these straight ones are a great way to begin. Another indication that this might really be a great beginner stocking. If you're someone who hasn't done a whole lot of stitching or a whole lot of embroidery. And you can find a lot of my videos have tutorials, and they're noted usually in the title or in the description that there's a tutorial for a particular stitch or a particular something. So you can look through those and get specific instructions on a particular stitch. Again, I've already set up this kit in my box. I got my floss sorted onto my floss sorter, and I got all my sequins in their little boxes where they go. And okay, and this is going to be 2 strands, and I've said this probably a million times, so I apologize for all those who've watched more than one video. I always thread 1 strand of floss, then I bring the 2, if I need 2 strands for a stitch, I bring the 2 ends together, make the knot, and now I have a double strand. That way, if I don't finish this strand, which I'm sure I will, I'll be threading again, but if I don't finish this strand and I put it back into my pin holder or my floss sorter, I can use it again. I can use it for an applique and only knot one end, not bring the 2 ends together, or I can use it for another kind of a stitch, an embroidery stitch, potentially an outline stitch. So I'm seeing here that a lot of these 2 rows of stitching, looks like these 2 rows of stitching are very close to the edge. So I'm probably going to go all the way around. And so I'm going to work from the bottom to the top. And I'll show you that when I get there to the top, because I don't want to have a gap at the top. So the outline stitch, you come up right on the line indicated where you want the stitch, and then you take a very small stitch in and out, but you don't go all the way down. You don't go back exactly to where you were. I don't know if you can see that. And then, so you make a little bit of progress with each stitch. And I hold my floss down here and take the next little stitch. And you're working, generally when I learned to embroider, all my embroidery was always done with an embroidery hoop, but it was also always done on a rather thin cotton or linen type material, and felt is not that thin. So I never use an embroidery hoop. I believe that if you did, it would cause some real distortion in your felt that you would not be able to remove, either by ironing. And of course, this item is really never going to be laundered, so you don't have that option to remove any distortion. So you just carefully work your way along, and I am careful not to pull my stitches too taut. I don't want to pucker the felt, but just tight enough to cover your lines and to just keep on going here. The one downside to the way that I thread my needle and tying a knot in both ends is you can get this kind of where the two threads are not exactly even. Just go ahead and pull, and if you need to, and I do here, separate the two strands and till you find which one it is that's not as tight, and you're going to give that a little bit of a pull. It's not that one, must be this one. There we go. And then it lays flat, and then now I just make sure that I pull my needle out and try to get those threads lined up together again. It's just something that happens as you're working down the row. Some of you ask sometimes about the cat. His name is Finnegan, and in May he was a feral cat as a kitten, and so we made his birthday May 1st, so he just turned 14. We've noticed, and he just went to the vet. He has some arthritis, and so he has to be careful when he's jumping and running around. We notice that he's not doing that as much anymore. So you may not see him up here on my table as much, although we went to the vet and he's got some special vitamins and things like that to help him cope with his arthritis. And he's jumped up on the table multiple times since then, so we may. But right now he's sleeping, and he does seem to be sleeping a little more than he did as a younger cat, and a little deeper. Like he always jumps and runs and tries to get away when my grandkids show up. He was never used to having children around. My youngest was, I think, 8 when we got him, and although my grandkids, some of them are older than that, he's leery of children and their activities, and he tries to stay out of the way. So but we've noticed that he sometimes sleeps through their arrival these days, so I think he's sleeping a little bit more soundly, or maybe not hearing quite as well as he used to. I'm not sure which, but we all have different changes we have to cope with as we age, and certainly I'm well acquainted with the arthritis coping, so I can be very sensitive to him. We're being careful not to let him jump down from anywhere, because we believe that's how he may have caused some pain and a slight injury that we took him to the vet for just a couple weeks ago. So here I'm getting to the end. Hopefully you can see that. I am about at the end of the line, not quite, almost, but I don't really have enough space here to make another stitch. So what I want to do is go from underneath and come up, still keeping my thread down below. And I'm actually going all the way around. That makes sure that I'm not going to have a gap of no stitching. Then I go down right next to where I came up, and that kind of acts as a little tack. It doesn't really even show, but it acts as a way of tacking those stitches down. So you can see how that went. You can see a little bit of the line depending on the angle. Don't worry too much about that, really. This is a project that should be enjoyable and not a source of worry and concern. So I want to start each line from the bottom and go to the top. So I am going to knot this stitch off. I just go to the back and I pick up a little bit of the thread that has come through and make my knot. I am not going through to the front, and there, that is that. And now I can cut that off. I will go through and do the rest of this outline stitching all along here, and then I'll come back and let you see that before I start to apply the sequins. Okay, hopefully you can see I've got the outline stitch done with the burgundy floss, and now it's time to work on the sequins. And these sequins, they told us, were going to be red, and so red sequins always match the bead color to the sequin if you can. And many of the sequins, though, just beads, but since we get red beads with the red sequins, we use the red beads. I'm also going to need to dig out. You're going to match the color of your floss to work with, also to the color of the sequins, if it's possible. Oh, our assistant has just joined us. I told you Finnegan wasn't up here much for a while, but he's back. No Finny, no Finny. And he is curious still, even though he's an old man. Come on. Let's see. All right. And I need to separate out a single strand of floss. And then I always use a needle threader for the bead needles. That's what you're going to be using here to apply the sequins and the beads, is one of the bead needles. And since I didn't open up the kit on camera, I guess I should probably let you see the bead needles. So let me see. No, Finnegan. For some reason lately he likes to grab my pins and needles in his mouth, and that is not a good idea, buddy. Okay, so here, let me show you the two needles. Out. Move on. Move on, buddy. Come on, move on. Sorry about the interruption. Let's see, I think this is his tail catches my camera and then moves it around. So here are the bead, and one bead needle and one embroidery needle. That's what they're labeled, and they'll come in two separate packets, and you can tell them apart by looking at the length of them. The sequin and bead needle is going to be longer, and it's also thinner, and that means that the eye, Finnegan, stop. That means that the eye of the needle is narrower and allows it to get into, to be able to have you thread it into the bead and the sequin. So that's what you need to use. The embroidery needle is for doing things like the outline stitch, for appliquing your pieces to the stocking, everything, pretty much everything except the sequins and beads. So let me locate my needle threader here, because I find it next to impossible to thread a bead needle by hand. So this is a very inexpensive needle threader. It's all that I have at the moment. Next time I go out, I need to get something better, because sometimes I tug on this to get it through the eye of the needle, and the wires, these little wires, pull right out. That's why I always hold it right where they fasten. Which you can see it's just fastened right there. Okay, and he's back. And so sequins and beads are always attached with a double strand. Stop it. Stop. So I'm bringing the two ends together and knotting them. I think I am. There we go. And then if there's any tail, I always trim that off. I don't want excess strings, and that's just a habit that I developed before I started lining stockings. The first stockings I made, I didn't line, so actually for years. So that's just a habit that I have. So I'm going to try to avoid his tail. What I do, I have my beads and my sequins in these lids with screws that screw down. I have tried many different kinds. If you've watched one of my videos on how to get started, I talk about that sometimes. And I find that if the lid doesn't screw down, that the beads, and it has multiple chambers or something in a container, that those did not work, because the sequins are so flat and the beads are so small that they like to get into each other's chambers, and that is not a happy working environment. So as you can see, I spend a great deal of time picking cat hair off of my work, and before I send it to its destination, I do take some time and make sure that happens. So to apply sequins, you can see I've just got a few beads and a few sequins here out ready to go, rather than the whole container. That way, if something happens and I dump it over, I haven't lost the whole thing. I'm going to bring my needle up from the back of the stocking, right in the center of the dot that indicates the sequin. And I'm going to take a sequin and turn it so that it is cupped like a bowl upwards. That's how I apply sequins, although they can be applied the other direction if you like. The whole first number of stockings I did them upside down until I learned that was upside down, and and I started doing them the other way. The difference is they will catch less light if they are upside down, and they will catch and reflect more light if they're cupped up like a dish or a saucer or a bowl. So I drop the sequin onto the needle, and then I pull the needle all the way through until I hit the knot. Then I'll pick up one bead on my needle and go right back down through the hole of the sequin and pull it tight. Okay. And then you just keep going down the row like that, getting the cat hair out of there. Sometimes the cat hair really gets sewn in. It gets harder to get out. Okay, and then I pick up another sequin, put that on my needle. So, whoops, except when your needle falls out, because I let go. There we go. And put that on. You'll find that as you do a few rows of sequins that you can just feel which direction they're going. You don't really have to look too closely at it. And you just keep going down the line. Now, if you've got a long strip, like sometimes you start out the stocking and it's all the way around the top of the stocking, every 5 or 6 sequins and beads, I will just put in one knot, so that if something should happen, if that line of sequins should get tugged on by something or someone, it won't pull the whole thing out. So it's just a precaution. Again, I like to make these and think that they're going to be around for a lifetime. So those are some of the little things that I do that help to ensure that. So here I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, I've got 5 sequins. So I am going to just turn it over, grab a little bit of felt that's under the sequin so it doesn't show, and make my knot. And keep on going. If you take a paper towel or a small piece of sponge and get it wet, just damp really, that's a good thing to have when you're working, because it allows you to get the tip of your finger slightly moist and to be able to just push your finger down on the sequin and that'll pick it up. Otherwise they can be kind of a challenge to pick up. I'll finish this line and then knot it off and do the rest of the lines off camera, because it's all the same, just like this. And I'm going to have to get up to go turn my washer and dryer back on. The cat, boss of the house as he is, has his litter box and his food in our laundry room. And so he is unhappy when the machines are actively working. He doesn't want to go in there and use his facilities. So he yells, like you heard him doing there, to tell me to come turn it off. So I have to put my machines on pause till he finishes his business. And then I have to remember to go back and turn them on. That's the hardest part. But he does run our household, being that he's the only pet left nowadays. We do tend to cater more to him than we have in the past. And he's an old man. And being ourselves getting a little older every single day, we understand some of the challenges that go with getting older day by day. Okay. And then when you finish your, in this case, kind of your line of sequins, Let me just go to the back, and this is where I do 2 knots. I just take a bite of the felt that is underneath the sequin so it wouldn't show, and give myself a couple of knots. And trim that off. And then we'll start with the next line right here and go all the way across, and when I'm done I will let you see that.